Good afternoon, Father. Thank you very much. And Happy New Year.
Really happy with you.
I hope you are doing well.
It was very fun.
Thank God.
Thank you for coming. I'm very grateful.
We are grateful.
Honored to have you today.
Thank you also for allowing us to come.
I'm very, very honored and grateful to you. So thank you. See, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Father. I'm grateful. We hope to have a nice conversation today. All right. Thank you. Welcome to the all-new season of the Untold here on Ghana Web TV with me, Eche Atisu. And what a way to kick off this season as we speak to no mean of a personality than Reverend Father Andrew Campbell, the man known as the lepers priest. He tells us a story of how he found his way to this West African country and all the beautiful stories 50 plus years here in these beautiful countries. What is a story? Do you know about all of it? We have it all right here on The Untold here on Ghana Web TV. We'll bring you all of the details right after this. We begin our story with a man who introduces himself as Dr. Joyce Campbell's twin, even though they were born in opposite sides of the world.
My name is Father Andrew Patrick Joseph Nilante Campbell. I was born on the 27th of March 1946. It was a Wednesday. And just by coincidence, Reverend Dr. Joyce Campbell, she was born also on the 27th of March 1946. So we see each other as twins. Except she was born at 8 o'clock in the morning and I was born at 5:30 in the evening, so she's older than me.
From far back in Ireland, Reverend Father Andrew Campbell speaks of the family he was privileged to be born into and why leaving them was the hardest decision.
I was born into a very, very happy family. I had a brother, Martin, but he died when he was a baby. I have two sisters, but one was killed in an accident just 3 months after I came to Ghana. Yesterday was her anniversary, which was 50 years anniversary, yes, of her death. And she was a year older than I. So she died on the 11th of January, 1971. And then I have another sister who's younger than I, just 1 year younger than me. She's at home with our two daughters who are married with children. So there were four of us: Martin, Margaret, Deirdre and myself, and then Mommy and Daddy. And we were the happiest family. I can honestly say that the hardest thing for me coming to Ghana was leaving my family. Leaving a happy, loving, caring family. I had a wonderful mother. I had a wonderful father, and I thank God for their great example, their love. I never saw them fight. I never saw them argue. Never. You know, if they did it in the room on their own, but not in front of us children. They never. They were always. They were in love with one another. That's how I saw it. My daddy would come home from work on a Friday. He was paid on a Friday, and he would just take out his money from his pocket and put it on the table. He says, "There's my wages. Now what's our expenses? What's our expenses?" So they'd work out the expenses to see, how they covered this, that, and the rest. They shared everything.
He tells us an interesting story about how his parents met and how his mother ended up in the convent, albeit shortly.
My mother was a very religious person. When she finished school, she went into become a pork butcher. All our family were pork butchers, the whole family. All my aunts and my uncles, my grandfather and all of them, they were all pork butchers. And my mother, of course, became a pork butcher. So she was in the shop selling pork, you know. And that's where she met my father. My father was living near the shop, and he must have been coming there to buy meat, and he met her. And obviously, he asked her out, and they were dating one another. For how long, I don't know. I never asked my father these questions. I should have, but I didn't. But they were dating for a while. And then one day my mother said to my father, I have a feeling God is calling me to be a reverend sister. And I don't know what my reaction was from my father, but my mother actually left for the convent, the Sacred Heart Convent. And ever since that time, I've got a strong devotion to the Sacred Heart. My mother joined our congregation just for 3 months, because after 3 months her health broke down and she came out. But she was 3 months in the convent as a postulant of the Sacred Heart Confraternity. And that, for her whole life, she inspired us with devotion to the Sacred Heart. Our home was consecrated to the Sacred Heart. We had always had the red light of the Sacred Heart burning, you know, in our hallway. The big picture of the Sacred Heart. So she always gave us that devotion. The Sacred Heart will take care of you. So when she left the convent, who was there ready to meet her except my father? So they started dating again and got married. And I can honestly say, my mother was a wonderful person. She loved cooking. She baked beautiful cakes and apple tarts, and you know, also she just loved it. And she was always helping people, always assisting people, no matter what she was. She'd go to the church in the morning on our bicycle. There was always a basket on the front of our bicycle, and she would ask the neighbours, "Can I buy things for you? Anything you want down at the shops?" And she would do that. She was so caring and so loving, and always thinking of other people. My father too was also a very caring man. He did a lot of work in the Legion of Mary, and he used to visit old people every week and bring them out for parties and one thing or the other. He was also very, very caring and sharing in every way. So the two of them, my mummy and my daddy, had a wonderful family.
Tragedy, however, struck his home and took away one of his dear sisters, and 50 years on, he never forgets.
We weren't well off because nobody in our family went to secondary school except me. I was the only one who went to secondary school. My sisters didn't go to secondary, they went to primary school, and my eldest sister, she died and she was working, and it was a tragic death. She was on the back of a motorbike, and the car came and knocked her down. The boyfriend survived, he's alive, he got married again. And I don't think, I can't forget my sister. She took over when my mother died, and she cared for us in our family. She was such a loving person. I could even remember just there on the 11th was just her 50th anniversary, so I can never forget Margaret for her love and care. So that was the family I came from. And we had prayer every evening. Mommy would take the rosary beads out and say, "Right, time for rosary. Turn off the radio." We had no television in those days. No television, no telephone, no car. We were just an ordinary family. So she would take out the rosary beads and give everybody the rosary. We'd all grab a chair and kneel behind a chair, and we'd pray the rosary together, because we always said the family that prays together will stay together. You never left our house without her blessing you. She had a holy water font on the side of the door, and she blessed everybody going out. She took us to Mass every morning. Every morning she took the children to Mass, and I'll always remember that. After communion, we'd all be kneeling down, my two sisters and myself would be kneeling down, and then Mommy would come back from communion. And one thing I'll always remember about her, she kissed every one of us after communion. Now, I must have been about 4, and my eldest sister was 5, and my younger sister was 3, because we hadn't made our first communion. And Mommy would come back from communion, and she would kiss each one of us. And I wondered, why would she kiss us? Why? And it was her way of sharing Jesus with us. She received Jesus in communion. Now she wanted to share Jesus with us. And she would just kiss each one of us. It was a wonderful, wonderful gesture. Even the prayers, she prepared me for my first communion, because I made my communion when I was 6 years of age. I was in primary school. So I was only 6 years of age when I made my communion. And who prepared me was my mother. Even the prayers I say today, and I'm 51 years a priest, the prayers I say after communion every day at Mass is what my mother taught me. So to me, my family were everything to me. They taught me everything, and they gave me all that love and that support.
While he had a happy home to grow in, little Andrew Campbell did not entirely have an easy life.
When I was 13, things weren't easy at home. I remember times going to school with big holes in my shoes, and I couldn't afford a new pair of shoes. And we'd stick a piece of cardboard in them, and I'd go to school with cardboard in my shoes. Or I'd have a patch in my trousers. We couldn't afford a new pair of trousers. Things were difficult. It wasn't easy for my mommy and my daddy. As I say, nobody went to secondary school. I was 13 when I finished primary school. And that's when my father says, Andrew says, we cannot afford to send you to secondary school. It'll cost £10 a year. We haven't got it. Go and work. So at the age of 13, I went to work in a wholesale grocers on the back of a truck. And I did that for 1 year. We worked for a Jew man. It was very strict. 8 o'clock in the morning, you start work. I'd go to Mass at 7:30, then come to work at 8 o'clock. And you work from 8 to 6 every day for 30 shillings a week. And I'd bring that money home to my daddy and say, Daddy, here's my money. Every week, we got paid on a Friday, I gave it to Daddy, here's my money. And he gave me 2 and 6 pocket money out of that. And that went on for 1 year. And then the second year, I was promoted at the age of 14. I was promoted to the shop. And I was behind the counter. And there I was responsible for all the big sales of chocolate, big chocolate boxes, chocolate, cheese, cigarettes, all of these. I was in charge of that at the age of 14. But I still wasn't happy.
Like an inner voice constantly thumping through his heart, he grew up feeling unhappy and sensing that there was something missing in his life that he needed to resolve.
Something was calling me and said, look, this is not for you. It's not for you. So at the age of 15, I applied to the Divine Word to the junior seminary over in England, and I wanted to be a priest. And I always felt that calling, that God is calling me to be a priest. When I was in primary school, I used to read these magazines, you know, on missionaries going out to various countries in Africa and Philippines and different countries. And I always had that feeling, God is calling me to share the gospel with others. And that's where it started. That's when the seed was sown in primary school. So when I was working for those 2 years, I wasn't happy. I said, this is not for me, you know. And I applied, and I got entrance into the junior seminary over in England. And I was there, I did my O-levels, I did 3 years, I was over there. I did it, prepared for my coming to the major seminary. So at the age of 18, then that's when I applied for the major seminary. But every holiday I worked. I worked in supermarkets, sweeping floors, putting food on shelves. I worked in a big clothing factory where they take pieces of clothing, you know, from various factories, and you sort them out. This is nylon, this is polyester, this is cotton. I worked in a big shop, you know, huge, big packages of old cloth and the rest. I worked in various places, you know, during the holidays because I had to work. I had to think of the next term. What's happening the next term? I need money for the next term. So we never did extra classes at home, never. You always went to work, whether it was a long vacation or whether it was Christmas time, it didn't matter. You went to work to bring money in. And I worked, I remember when it was 1964, I worked in a supermarket in Dublin, and I was sweeping floors, and I was putting food on shelves. And that's when I applied to join the major seminary, to go along to be a Divine Word missionary, to start my education and my training as a Divine Word missionary, and I become a novice.
Becoming too clear by this time that he might just miss his opportunity to go to the seminary, all that was left for the young Andrew was a miracle. And a miracle did he get.
I was working in the shop, downstairs in the storeroom, and sweeping and cleaning and the rest. And I had to get a long list of clothing and others to go to the seminary. I said, what am I going to do? I don't have any rich grandfather. I don't have any auntie or uncle that can give me money. I don't have that. I don't have anybody. I had to buy shoes, suit, shirts, underwear, all of these. But I managed. One or two people gave me, here's a pair of new shoes for you, here's some socks for you, such and such. So they helped me out. But I was left with black cassocks, 3 black cassocks. I said, what am I going to do? I don't have the money. Mommy and Daddy didn't have the money. My grandparents were all dead. So what do I do? So I said, Lord, you want me to be a priest for them? Please, you help me. And that's when a letter came in to the postman, bought a letter, put it into the letterbox. And then there was a letter. Dear Mr. Campbell, this was August 1964. Dear Mr. Campbell, please accept this gift. It was a £10 note, exactly what I needed to buy my 3 cassocks. Please accept this little gift as a gift from me and my children. I pray you'll be a holy priest and a good priest. Pray for me and my children. Signed, Donor. Who the donor is, I don't know. I don't know. You're going back to 1964. 64. Nobody ever, I don't know anybody in my family would have £10 note. Nobody. And I said, who is it? I guess I have to wait till I go up there before I find out who it was to be able to say thank you. But whoever it was, I'm most grateful that he went out of the way. And £10 was a lot of money in those days. So with that £10, I went and bought my 3 black cassocks, got ready for the seminary, and on the 8th of September 1964, I said goodbye to my family and says, now I'm off to the major seminary. And I spent 2 years in novitiate in the west of Ireland.
His journey to becoming a fully fledged priest had taken flight, and the next major thing for him after his training was his journey to this West African country, Ghana. How he got here is an interesting story, and he shares it with many smiles.
At the end of 2 years, you took the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And during those 2 years, it was quite strict, quite strict. We talked for the first time of the day at 10 minutes to 11 in the morning. And you talked for 10 minutes. And then all meals were silence, except tea. Tea was 15 minutes you could talk, and then it was silence. We had a lot of silence, time of prayer, time of conferences. Every day we had football. I was on the football field every day. Whether it was raining or snowing, whatever it was, the group of us were always cross-country running. I used to do cross-country running, all these things we did. And that was for the 2 years that I trained to be a novice and prepare for my first vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. In our second year, we started philosophy. So we started philosophy, and then the second year, novitiate, and the third year I was there, I did the second year of philosophy. And then I went to Dublin, to the major, since a very big major seminary in Dublin called Maynooth. And there were hundreds and hundreds of clerical students are being trained there for the priesthood. So I went there for 4 years and did my theology and got my degree from the seminary. And every long vacation, you know, you had a choice. You could go and work wherever you wanted to work. No, we didn't do pastorals. So the first year I went to work as a welder, and a welder in a big factory in London. The second year I said, no, I want to work in a hospital. So I applied for a hospital in Liverpool. And I went to Liverpool and I worked as an auxiliary male nurse. I had my uniform, you know, a nice uniform with trousers, all white. So everybody thought I was a nurse. I hadn't got a clue about nursing. I didn't know. But we did our best. And I worked in the medical ward. I worked in the urological ward. I didn't even know what the word urological meant when he said, Mr. Campbell, you're going to the urological. To the what? The urological ward, I remember that. And even I got to know some of the people very well there. They were so good to me, so good. And then the third year, I went and also went back to the same hospital, and I worked there in the outpatients department and the emergency. It was right beside the docks, the Liverpool docks, and people coming in with all sorts of injuries. Some of it was awful. And then the fourth year, I was ordained a priest. And I was ordained a priest on the 20th of December, 1970. There were 3 of us in our class. There were 15 in the class, and there were 3 of us. We were only 24 years of age, and that's young. You don't get ordained until you're at least 25. So my superiors had to write to Rome and get permission for us to be ordained at the age of 24. We were ordained at the age of 24. And of the 3 of us, 1 is gone to heaven, and 1 is back in Ireland, and I'm here. The rest, we scattered all over. Some went to India, some went to Kenya, some went to South America. But the 15th scattered. That's, I miss my class because I have no classmates to talk to. No classmates to talk to, unless I go home to Ireland, there's 1 or 2 there. And then I came to Ghana.
An Irishman in the hot climates of Ghana. Tough as it was, he explains how the love from the people of Osu got him grounded.
I left Liverpool on the 1st of October, and I took the Elder Dempster line, the Oriole, the boat. I took that boat on the 1st of October, 1971. The reason why I came to Ghana, when I applied to the Divine Word Missionaries, I wanted to come to Africa. And with the Divine Word Missionary Congregation, Ghana was the only country they were working in. Now we're working in many, many, many countries in Africa, many countries. But at that time, it was the only country. That's why I applied for Ghana. And you're given a choice. You know, you're told, give three choices, first, second, and third. I got my first choice, which was Ghana. And I came with another priest. 2 of us came on the boat. On the high seas, we came on the boat 13 days on the high seas, right through the Bay of Biscay. So we came to Ghana and arrived on the 13th of October, 1971. But the priest that came with me, after 3 or 4 months, he said, no. He said, this life is not for me. So he left. He left and went back to London and became parish priest in London. I did very well there, and I stayed here. And just at that particular time, I got a telegram stating that my sister was killed in a motorbike accident. And that had an awful bad, you know, it was devastating. It was devastating. So I went back to Ireland, but I missed the funeral. The funeral was in the morning, I arrived in the evening. And that had a devastating, it took a long time for me to get over this. So that's how I came to Ghana. And they were the beginning, the early days here in Ghana. It wasn't easy settling down to the climate. Ireland is cool climate, you know, and the rain during the summer is nice summer, but It's never hot like in Ghana, never hot, and it's a different, Ghana is a different climate completely. The food, I mean, I never heard of fufu before. I never heard of banku. I never heard of, all of these, never heard of those before. So I had to get used to all of the food, the climate, the people, and it was difficult at the beginning, I must say. I didn't find it easy. And I was assigned to St. Peter's, Osu, for a few months. And when I was assigned, I didn't want to stay in Ghana. I wanted to go back to Ireland. Because I said, no, I'm not happy here. I'm not happy. I knew nobody. And I wasn't happy. My sister had just died. And I was trying to settle down and I couldn't. So I applied to go back to Ireland. And it was hard, But when I went to St. Peter's in Osu, and I took over, the priest there had died, Father Feeney, the Togolese priest, he had died, and I took over the parish there. I loved it. The people, they were so good to me. They won me over. And because of them, I stayed, and I thank God that because of them I'm here today. So I'm very, very grateful to the people in Osu for being so kind and looking after me during those early days. They don't know what they were doing because it was such a happy community and a loving community, and they won my heart over, and that's why I stayed in Ghana.
The death of his father was a hard one for him, but he says at least he was proud of something in that moment. His wishes were met.
Then I was my father died in 1976. I was called home to Dublin, and my father had cancer. My father used to smoke, something I hate. He smoked, and it was too late. He got cancer of the lung. And I was with him right to the very, very, very end. I was with Daddy. He was such a wonderful man, such a wonderful man. He gave me all the encouragement. And the strange thing about my father, he always supported me going away to be a priest. I was the only boy in the family. My little brother died when he was a baby, so I was the only son in the family. And the two of us were always together. We'd go on holidays together, we'd go cycling together. We used to work in the garden together. We used to do all these things together. Sunday we'd cycle over to see Grandma, and then in the afternoon we'd go to a football match. But we were always together. Dad was a wonderful person. So when he was dying, I stayed with him right to the very end. So on the 27th of June, it was the only day he spent in bed. The only day and I called the doctor, and the doctor says, there's nothing we can do. Nothing we can do. So he asked me, he said, Andrews, there's a crucifix behind me over my bed. Take that crucifix and put it in front of me here, which I did. And I still have that crucifix beside me in my own bed here. So take that crucifix and put it, right in front of me. And I went for evening mass in the parish church, came back and said, Daddy, what do you want? Oh, just a bit of bread and a cup of milk. So I brought it to him. When I came back afterwards, then he went into a coma and he died in my arms. And it was a wonderful experience in the sense that earlier on, some months beforehand, I was upset one day, very upset. And I went to see the matron of the hospital which Daddy was admitted to. And I said to the matron, Matron, my father's dying of cancer. And I said, when I was a seminarian, I've seen people die of cancer. I said, I'm scared. What should I do? He's the next room to me. So I was in one room, Daddy the next, and my sister and husband in the next room. I said, what happens if during the night he takes bad? What do I do? I don't know what to do. And I was really worried. And the matron said to me, Father, look, you don't worry. God will take care. God will take care. And here was a nursing sister telling a priest, You know, God will take care. She was giving me counsel. Oh, I'll never forget that. Then I went to the church. I said, God, okay, you win. You win. I argued with her. I said, you've taken my brother. You've taken my mother. You've taken my sister. Now you want to take my father. Why? Why? So I argued with him and argued with him. In the end, I said, okay, God, you win. You win. It was hard. It was hard. And I said, God, I want two requests from you. Number one, that when Daddy is dying, I want to be with him. Number two, he has no pain. I've seen patients die of cancer in pain. And I wanted to be with my father when he died. That 27th of June, 6 o'clock in the evening, when Daddy took bad, I was with him. He died at 7. There was nobody else with him. I was on my own with him. He had no pain. He just went into a coma and gradually went off quietly, quietly. It was beautiful death, as if I'd taken him to heaven, as if I'd gone there and come back. And I must say this, Richard, since that experience, I have never been afraid of death. You know, it taught me something, there's something, life after death, there's something special there. And as if there was that happy feeling, you know, that Daddy's gone to a place where there's no cancer, where there's no pain, there's no hospital, there's no suffering. And I felt happy for him. And I sat there with him, holding him in my arms. There was no crying. I just said, Daddy, you've gone to where you were made for. And I held him in my arms. And then the neighbors came in and started crying, then I left him. But I always remember that was at 1976. I came back to Ghana.